It had only been a month since Elliot was last here. He had intended to stay on Earth for longer, recover, process, maybe even take a break. But when you're the one who made first contact with intelligent alien life, you don't exactly get much time to yourself. Even if he had, he would have found himself returning sooner rather than later. He missed them. The research station looked different. It had received a huge surge of funding with everything that happened, and it was clear that the influx of resources was being put to good use. As soon as the station AI approved his docking request, Elliot carefully landed his ship on the assigned landing pad and disembarked. The air outside the ship was crisp, tinged with the sterile scent of metal and recycled oxygen. Elliot barely had time to take in his surroundings before a familiar figure approached. Trevok Daunar. The Drathak stood with his usual grounded presence, arms crossed over his chest, his dark plated scales reflecting the station's artificial lighting in faint bronze undertones. His glowing metallic eyes studied Elliot for a moment before he gave a slow, approving nod. "Elliot," Trevok rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "Didn't expect you back so soon." Elliot grinned. "Yeah, well, Earth's a little too normal for me these days." Trevok let out a quiet chuckle, then gestured toward the inner halls of the station. "Come, you'll want to see this." As they walked, Trevok explained the reason for his haste. The increased funding hadn't just improved the station, it had accelerated their research. The gravitational anomaly that had first drawn their attention, they had finally managed to identify the source. A strange object had been discovered in the asteroid belt, which they had managed to retrieve. "We just brought it in," Trevok said. "Hesara and Kralvek are already examining it." Elliot couldn't help but laugh. "First time I got here, just before a pirate attack, and now just after you guys recovered some kind of anomaly. I've got some impeccable timing." The doors to the central research chamber slid open with a quiet hiss. The room was dim, the primary source of light emanating from a strange object at its center, where a containment field had been erected around it. Kralvek stood near a large console, meticulously monitoring energy readings, as Hesara was inspecting the object from close by with intense focus. Elliot barely had time to take in the scene before a sharp sound broke the air. A datapad clattering to the ground. His gaze snapped to Hesara. She was standing unnaturally still, her feathered frame frozen in place. Her luminous eyes were locked onto the object, unblinking, unseeing. Her wings' arms hung limply at her sides. Something was wrong. Elliot took a step forward, but the station's AI's voice crackled over the comms. "Warning, recovered object is exhibiting a psychological effect on Hesara Quarrel. Recommend maintaining distance to prevent further exposure." Kralvek tensed. "Can we shut it down?" "Insufficient data. Proximity may increase risk of additional exposure." Trevok cursed under his breath. "Damn thing's already got her." Elliot looked at Hesara again. She wasn't moving. Was she even breathing? Seconds passed, stretching endlessly until the weight of inaction grew too heavy for Elliot to bear. Fuck this. He ignored the AI's warning and strode forward. "Elliot, wait!" Kralvek's voice cut off as the world vanished. Elliot looked around but saw nothing in any direction, stood upon a floor that similarly wasn't there. The air was thick, pressing in on him like the depths of an ocean, yet weightless, as if he was standing in a vacuum. He lifted a hand, only to realize he couldn't feel his own movement, couldn't sense the strain of his muscles. It was as though his body existed out of obligation, a suggestion rather than a certainty. Then came the voices. Soft at first, an indistinct murmur just at the edge of his hearing, but then one rose above the others. Clear, familiar, his own. Elliot turned and saw himself. Not a reflection, not a projection, but another version of him, standing there talking to someone. A stranger. Yet as he thought the word, Elliot knew it to be false. This was no stranger. Memories surged into his mind, a friendship spanning years, laughter, late nights, whispered conversations about hopes and fears, memories of a bond so deep it has shaped and defined him. Except, they weren't real. The moment Elliot realized, the pain hit. The memories stayed, vivid and whole, but without truth, without reality. They were lost to him all the same. More visions appeared. A woman smiling at him, a warmth in her eyes that made his chest tighten. Someone he had loved. A child reaching for his hand. His child, though he had never been a father. A life lived in another world, on another path, as real as the air he breathed. And then, as quickly as they came, they changed again, leaving only the memories of both a life and love that could have been, of a life and love that never were, due only to some arbitrary decision Elliot had made years ago, without ever even realizing it. And with those memories, the weight of their loss. The woman's face shifted into another, a different love, a different life. The child was gone, similarly replaced by a different life. Then another, and another. Every life, yet another, he had never lived. Every life, yet another, he had lost before it had the chance to become real. The grief was too much. The faces, the voices, the lives, so many could-have-beens, so real they pressed against his mind like memories he had simply forgotten until now. A childhood friend he never met, a love that never bloomed, a teacher who never guided him. They were real in every way that mattered. They should have been real. He refused to let them go. If he reached for one, he lost all others. If he turned toward a life with one person, he turned away from countless more. He couldn't pull them all together, couldn't keep them. The moment he chose, he destroyed all the rest. His gut twisted. There had to be a way. If choosing one meant destroying all others, perhaps not choosing would preserve all of them. And yet, the visions kept shifting, continuously bombarding him with more and more lives and moments that had fallen victim to his choices. Time had become an unintelligible blur by the time he realized. Not choosing was still a decision. It was the decision to be lost. The realization stabbed through him like ice. If he refused to choose, he would simply continue to be trapped, paralyzed, dragged in 1,000 directions by lives he would never live, people he would never meet, until there was nothing left of him at all. He wanted to keep everything, but in trying to keep everything, he would have nothing. The air suddenly felt lighter. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The countless memories of lives he had never lived slowly began to fade, leaving behind only the memories of having those memories. Elliot opened his eyes. Hesara sat curled up on the ground before him. She was shaking, her wing arms wrapped tightly around herself, the feathers trembling. She was surrounded by visions of her own. They flickered and shifted, countless lives unfolding and vanishing in the space of moments. Faces of strangers turned familiar, then faded into nothing. Conversations began but never finished. Hands reached out but never touched. Elliot watched as she seemed to exist at the center of infinite possibilities, each one stretching toward her and then slipping away before it could become real. He stepped forward. The ground, or whatever it was, did not resist him. If anything, it felt easier now, as though he had passed through the worst of it. Hesara had not. He moved carefully, making sure his approach was audible. She did not react. Even as he knelt beside her, even as he sat, the only sign she gave that she knew he was there was a flicker in her breathing. "Hesara," he said gently. Her wing arms pulled in tighter. "You're not real," she said, her voice shaking. The words were so small, so certain, so desperate. Elliot reached out, carefully resting a hand against the sleek feathers along her wing arm. She flinched, but he didn't pull away. Slowly, cautiously, she turned her head to look at him. "I am," he said simply. Her pupils were wide, her breathing uneven. Her usual cheerful energy drowned in a notion of self-chastisement. He watched as realization struggled to break through whatever she was seeing, as if she had to convince herself that he really was there. Eventually, she shifted her wing arm slightly away from his touch, but the tension in her posture eased just a little. Elliot didn't push. He let the moment sit. Finally, Hesara let out a deep sigh.
How did you get through it?
Her voice was hoarse, like she had been trying to scream over a storm for hours. He glanced at the shifting vision still flickering around them, at the countless paths leading forward and away from her. I chose. Hesara swallowed.
Her wing arm shuddered. I can't. Not anymore.
Elliot tilted his head, watching her carefully. Why not?
Because any choice I make...
She hesitated, her claws pressing lightly against her wing arms.
Any choice means cutting something off. Someone off.
Her voice dropped lower, rough with a pain that was deeper than personal.
If I turn left instead of right, I might never meet someone I could have known. If I take one path, I leave 1,000 others behind. Even being here, talking to you, I might be missing someone I was meant to meet. If I do anything, I erase something. Someone.
Elliot let the word settle. He had felt the weight of it himself, the way this strange place pressed infinite lives against his mind, made him feel as though they were casualties to his choices. He had clawed his way through that suffocating need to hold on to everything. But for Hesara, it was something deeper than that. Something about this place hurt her on a fundamental level. This isn't just the grief, is it? He asked carefully. She shook her head, a short, jerky motion.
It's my people, it's...
Her wing arms tightened, her throat working around words that didn't want to come out. Her voice shook as she struggled to hold back her tears.
Relationships mean everything to us. Every connection, every bond, it's...
She gestured vaguely, as if trying to grab hold of something intangible.
We value them more than anything, and I...
The shaking got worse, and her voice quieted to a whisper.
I kill them. Every second. Every breath I take. They die before they even begin, because I make choices.
Her voice cracked as she began to cry.
Because I exist.
Watching the way she curled in on herself, the way her entire being trembled, Elliot's eyes widened slightly as he realized. The Fornia embraced the change inherent to any relationship. The grief would still hurt, but of course it wouldn't paralyze them like this. Elliot had overcome his challenge. He could leave. He felt it. But to Hesara, whatever this place was, it challenged her fundamental beliefs about existence itself, and did so in the cruelest and most painful way possible. The shifting visions continued to draw her eyes. Lives unlived, bonds unformed, each another reason for Hesara to hate every choice she had ever made. He was either going to leave with her, or not at all. He exhaled softly. Hesara, he said, his voice careful and steady. If you don't choose anything, if you stay here, frozen, none of these relationships could ever happen. She flinched, her grip tightening on herself, claws curling slightly against her wing arms. I know it feels like making a choice kills everything else, Elliot continued gently, but refusing to choose doesn't save them. It just guarantees that none of them will ever be real.
That's not how it works,
Hesara responded immediately, trying to hold on to the one solution she had been able to find. Her voice was fragile, desperate as she tried to think of any reason to not discard it.
If I wait, if I don't act, then maybe something will happen that lets me keep more of them. If I move too soon, I could be throwing away the best possible path.
Elliot frowned. How long would you wait? Hesara faltered. A minute? An hour? His voice stayed soft, but his words pressed forward. A lifetime? How long until you're sure? How long until you know you won't lose something precious? She opened her mouth to try and retort, then closed it again. Elliot's expression softened again. And what about everything you've already chosen? Every path you've already walked? Are those worthless just because they meant letting go of other possibilities? Hesara's breath hitched as she slowly looked at Elliot again. He thought for a moment before meeting her gaze. Have you ever made a choice that brought you happiness? She swallowed hard as she closed her eyes, trying to find any memory that she knew was truly hers. Eventually, slowly, hesitantly, she nodded. Then wasn't it worth making? She turned her face away as she pondered the question. Elliot continued. And the relationships that came from that decision, were they devalued simply because you chose them in place of others? For a long moment, they were both silent. The visions around her continued, but eventually began to slow down, as if waiting for her to decide whether to hold on or let go. Finally, she whispered, Then what should I do? Elliot tilted his head, unsure as to what she meant. Her voice trembled. How? How do I choose? What if I pick the wrong thing? What if I make the wrong decision and ruin everything? Her voice crackled. What if I lose something that I was meant to have? Elliot thought for a few moments. I don't think there is a right choice, he said. And there is no wrong one either. Hesara's eyes widened slightly as she looked up at him, searching his face. Elliot looked towards the shifting visions around them. Look at all of this, he said calmly. Look at how many different lives you could have lived, how many people you could have known. His voice wasn't mournful nor regretful. It was full of something else, something closer to wonder. Hesara's voice broke again as she murmured, And now I will never know them. Elliot nodded. Maybe not, he admitted, but you do get to choose who you will know. You get to choose who you let into your life, who you hold on to, who you cherish. He gestured to the visions. There is beauty in this. Not in what's lost, but in knowing just how much is possible. Just how much has been possible this whole time. Hesara's breath caught. Elliot let a small breath of laughter escape him. It's kind of incredible, isn't it? He said. To have so much freedom, to have so many paths you could have taken, to know that, even now, you still get to choose. Hesia's wing arms, once tightly curled around her, loosened further. And it is those choices that you make, Elliot continued, that truly make your life your own. Through your own choices, you could have steered your life down any one of these paths. It was through your own choices that you made your life what it is now. You're not sacrificing relationships, you are choosing the ones you want. Hesara's posture relaxed further. So don't mourn the choices you didn't make, because if there is any choice one can consider right, it'll be steering your life down a path that brings you joy. They sat in silence for a few moments before Elliot spoke up again. But for where to start? He pushed himself to his feet, then turned and held out his hand. For now, he said, why not choose to stand? Hesara stared at his outstretched hand, the weight of endless possibilities still pressing down on her. The visions flickered around her, still tempting, still whispering. Just for an instant, her gaze caught on one of the shifting visions. Elliot stood beside her, his presence familiar yet different, closer in a way she hadn't even thought to imagine. It was yet another bond that hadn't gotten the chance to flourish. Yet... Her hand trembled as she reached for his. Clawed fingers brushed against his palm, hesitant and uncertain. Then, with a deep breath, she took it. He helped her up as the void around them faded away, and the station reasserted itself in an instant. Kralvik's voice continued as though nothing had happened. Don't go near that thing. You have no idea what it's doing to... her.